Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining me on episode 4 of the Sorce Law Podcast. Today we're going to be discussing what to do in the event you're caught with an unlawful arrest or a traffic stop. That could be possession of drugs, that could be a DWI, a DUI, it could be something as simple as a speeding ticket. So today I'm joined by my good friend, Gregory Kalmar. Gregory is an attorney here in Melville, Long Island. He's a graduate of New York Law School. He possesses a broad legal background with more than 13 years of experience in the courtroom. He's both a trial attorney and a strong negotiator. He specializes in criminal law, but also handles some personal injury and real estate law as well. He has a history of success in the courtroom. Mr. Kalmar sits on several boards, including the Suffolk County Criminal Bar Association, the Huntington Lawyers Association, as well as participates as a guest speaker at Touro Law School. Greg, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So I told the audience you specialize predominantly in criminal law.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So today I want to talk about some things that people are always asking about. What to do if I get pulled over, potentially a DWI, what to do if you get a traffic ticket. So why don't we start with, what do you advise an individual to do in the event they get pulled over? Maybe they had a couple drinks after work or at an event. What do you recommend?
Listen, we live on Long Island. It's actually, I get asked that question at least once a week. What do I do? Do I blow? Don't I blow? How should I handle this situation? Really what it comes down to is each situation is different.
Okay.
What it comes down to is if you're driving and you've had a couple of drinks, you're watching the football game over at your friend's house.
Local bar.
Local bar or your friend's house, and you have one drink or two drinks.
Right.
And you get in the car, but your 14-year-old kid's with you, or your 10-year-old kid, or your 8-year-old kid's with you. And you get pulled over. You think you're completely fine.
Right.
My number one advice would be you do not blow.
Okay.
Because what it comes down to is this. You have a kid in the car. There's Leander's Law.
Right.
Which basically says this is a felony because there's a kid in the car.
No matter what.
And if you blow,
right,
they have you.
No matter what.
You got a kid. You got a reading.
Right.
If they have no reading, it gives us some sort of defense.
So let me ask you, do you automatically have to blow at the scene? Like a cop pulls you over, he suspects you having a couple of drinks perhaps. Generally speaking, what's the next thing the police officer is going to do?
Normally what they'll do is something called a field sobriety test.
Okay.
And there is about 4 to 5 of them that they will use. Normally there's a walk and turn test, which they make you take a couple steps and then you turn and you come back. They're watching to see what your balance is.
Okay.
They'll do a horizontal gaze test, which basically they take a pen across your eyes to see the jerkiness in your eyes. Believe it or not, your eyes have involuntarily move when you're under the influence of alcohol. So normally, if you were to look left and right, it glides. But if you have liquor in your system, it actually starts to, it's a signal to them that, exactly. It's a strange, your body does strange things.
Right.
That's one of the strange things that it does.
Okay.
What it comes down to is they look at these, and these are indicators on whether they're going to place you under arrest.
Okay.
And they'll take these field sobriety tests. Normally what they'll do next is they'll give you something called a PBT, which is on the side of the road. You'll see we've all seen the pictures of the person on the side of the road taking a test.
Right.
That test is not admissible in court. That's basically just a indicator.
I didn't know that.
To them that they could potentially put you under arrest.
So that's not evidence.
No, that is not evidence. You cannot, they will not allow that at a trial. They will look at it when they are trying to negotiate with you in the courtroom, but it is not admissible at trial.
Okay.
The test that we all know about is the one that happens back at the police department.
Okay.
And what comes down to with those is they have to give you the option to take that test or not to take that test.
And that's after you're already under arrest.
Yes.
Is there any point in time after you're arrested that you can call your attorney before blowing at the police station?
My advice is that the second that they put you in the back of that car to bring you over to the precinct, you say, I want to speak to an attorney.
And they have to give you that call?
They have to give you that call.
Okay.
And the reason that I say that is because, as I indicated earlier, I always get the question, should I blow or shouldn't I blow?
Fact specific.
It's fact. Exactly.
Right.
What it comes down to is you need to be able to sit there and say, okay, how much do you weigh? How much liquor did you have?
Right.
Is there a kid in the car? Is there a car accident? The reason I bring up those types of issues is if you're in a car accident and you have any sort of booze in your system, any sort of alcohol in your system,
right,
don't blow.
Right.
Because you're going to get the accident and definitely don't leave.
Okay.
Because what it comes down
Right,
to
of course.
is, back in the day, people were like, "Oh, I just took off." They're going to find you.
Yeah, there's
And when
cameras everywhere.
There's cameras everywhere.
Yep.
And people are all over the place.
Right.
And leaving the scene of an accident, whether you're under the influence or not under the influence, it becomes a major charge.
Yeah.
And the normal guy who's never been arrested before is driving down the road. What's the first thing that happens when you're in an accident? You panic.
Of course.
And
What do you do?
What do you do?
Right.
I would panic. I'm in a car accident. You're going to panic.
Yep.
If your next thought is, I'm going to leave. Nobody's going to know. Nobody saw it.
Right. Everyone's got a ring now. Everyone's got a surveillance
Next thing you know
system.
is guy, your normal guy, your Wall Street guy, your guy that never thought he'd ever be in trouble is calling me.
Yep.
And the reason for that is because you left the scene of an accident.
Yeah. So it's another charge on top of potentially injuring someone.
Exactly.
And if there's alcohol in the mix, it's
if there's alcohol in the mix, you know what? You need to stay. You need to address the situation.
Okay.
What it comes down to is your normal Joe is driving down the road.
Right.
They have a kid in the car. They're drinking. I say don't take the test.
Right.
If normal guy driving down the road, he's in an accident. He's got some liquor in his system. I say don't take the test.
So what are the implications if somebody doesn't take the test? They call you or they call someone else, whatever it is, and they just choose not to take the test. Is there any immediate repercussions to that decision?
The problem with refusing in the state of New York is there's going to be a refusal hearing, and if they find that they had probable cause to pull you over, then they are going to suspend your license for a year.
No matter what.
No matter what. And when it comes to, the next question I get is, well, can I get a back and forth to work?
Right.
No. This is driving as a privilege. In the state of New York, this is what they do. They say, here's your license. These are the rules that you have to live by.
Right.
And if you're not going to live by them, we are going to take that license away. So it becomes a major problem.
Right.
Because it gets to the next situation where you say, well, why would I ever take the test?
Right.
We live on Long Island.
Yeah.
And when you get that 1 year suspension,
Tough to get around.
you got to get your kids to soccer. You got to get, people need license.
Of course. You need to function in society.
So when you take the test, what ends up happening is, depending on your reading, 0.08, New York State, that's the threshold.
Is that a DWI or is that a DUI or?
Anything over a 0.08 is going to be a DWI.
Is that a felony or?
It's a misdemeanor.
Okay.
It's a misdemeanor. What it comes down to is that you have to understand that there's a difference between having a beer or two at a bar, getting in a car, blowing a, say, 0.11. You know what? You'll be able to go to a district attorney and make them understand what occurred.
Okay.
Not only that is you're going to be eligible for something called a hardship license within 5 days of being arraigned, which means going in front of a judge.
Right.
To get to and from work.
Okay.
And you're going to be eligible to get a restricted license 30 days after the day of arrest.
And this is if you are...
This is your first time DWI.
Okay.
And I hate to use the word DWI, but that's what the street, we call it on the street.
That's what it is, right.
I call it 1192 too, but to you that means nothing.
Right.
So what it comes down to is when you get this, and you are going to be able to have some flexibility on that license end of things.
And that's if you're convicted or if that's if you plead or?
It's pending.
Pending, okay.
That is pending while the case is pending.
And this is if there's no extra factors such as, God forbid, a child in the car or an accident involved.
Or it's for your second one. This is for your first
time offender, you above the 0.08.
Yep.
You still get you blow, you get the pending charge.
Pending charges there.
And
you're eligible for a hardship license if you could prove the fact that you need that license for the income and that you can't, and there is no alternative source of getting to and from work.
Okay.
But they're strict.
Right.
If I live,
as they should be.
If I live a mile away from work, they're not giving me a hardship license. They're going to say, you walk to work.
Right. Ride a bicycle.
Exactly.
Right.
Living on Long Island, most people live 10, 15 miles away, and we don't exactly have a subway service.
Right, like the
so
city.
It becomes, an Uber to go 15 miles both directions to work.
Right.
5 days a week.
Right.
Is going to cost you a couple $100.
Yeah.
And
a week.
A week. And what it comes down to is that takes out of the household.
Right.
So New York State is given the opportunity where if you could prove that it's a hardship, you'll be eligible from to and from work. And what it comes down to is you also have you're eligible for in 30 days for something called a restricted license.
Okay. And this is something that, like, you as the attorney would discuss with the district attorney
Exactly.
and try to work out a plan that works for everybody.
Exactly.
End of the day, we would say, obviously, don't drink and drive. But in the event you get caught in a situation that obviously is not ideal and you fail the field sobriety test, call an attorney right away. Call Greg right away, and he could give you guidance and
Absolutely.
give you an idea of what to do based on your circumstances.
One of the bigger parts of that is also you also have to know the difference between having a couple drinks and being completely sloshed.
Right.
Because if you're completely sloshed,
Yeah.
they're not going to work with you.
Right.
What it comes down to is there's no negotiating when you're blowing a .22.
Right.
Which is
it aggravated?
It's aggravated. It's an aggravated misdemeanor.
Right.
And what it comes down to is anything really over a .16, they become very, very strict with.
Okay.
And how do you know when you're pulled over and you're under arrest that whether you should take it or not? It's at that point really you should call your attorney.
Right.
And you should call them and say, hundreds of times I've been called in the middle of the night.
Right.
I get a phone call, I pick it up. They're asking me whether I should blow or not.
Right.
What I react is and I tell them is, I'm going to ask you a bunch of yes and no questions.
Yeah.
Do not give me any elaboration.
Right.
I want yes and no.
Okay.
First question is, were you drinking tonight? Yes. How much did you have to drink? More than 2, more than 5, more than 10?
Right.
And you wait for the yes.
Okay.
Do you weigh more than 150? Do you weigh more than 180? 200?
Right.
And I do a calculation, rough calculation of blood
obviously.
alcohol.
Yeah.
And what it comes down to at that point, I say to them, take the test or don't take the test.
Right.
Based on my rough calculation of what I believe their alcohol level would be when they blow that.
Right.
Because in my calculation, if it's over the .15,
yeah, it's going to be a problem.
you're going to have a problem.
Big
no matter
problem.
what.
Right.
So if you're over that, don't blow. We'll deal with it, but you're going to lose your license for a year.
End of the day, always call your attorney. And if you're ever caught in this, terrible situation. So Greg, in addition to a DWI, which, like you said, it's probably the most common question you get asked on a weekly basis. What else do you come across that the average Joe, regular Joe would come across in their, whether it's a kid gets pulled over, they get pulled over.
I get when you say the average Joe, we live we live on Long Island and that's where I predominantly practice, but I also do practice all across New York State.
You do the boroughs,
exactly,
Westchester.
And what's crazy is I get a lot of colleges that are upstate, college students. What ends up happening is parents will give me a call, say, my kid was in a fight.
Okay.
Bar fight.
Right.
What do you do?
Yeah.
Hopefully they're calling early enough where they were the first phone call and I can say, do not talk to anybody.
Right.
Detectives, don't talk to anybody because anything that you could say is going to be held against you.
Right.
So even if you say
it's admissible.
It's admissible.
Right. You can't get around it. You said it.
Can't get around it.
It's in the record.
Exactly.
Okay.
And people, there's a misnomer in regards to your being read your rights.
Mm-hmm.
What it comes down to is being read your rights. If you're just blurting stuff out,
right,
they could use that.
Right.
But if they're asking you questions, then you should have your rights read to you.
Right.
But if you're, Jimmy over here, he hit me in the face, and the bouncer was going to do this, and this was going to end up happening.
Okay.
This is going to be used against you.
Right.
And what it comes down to is if there is a police officer around, a detective, they will do whatever they need to do in order to get the information from you.
Right. And get their case.
Exactly.
Right.
So the best thing to do is just be quiet.
And will you travel upstate to meet these people, the boroughs? So you go everywhere.
I go everywhere.
Okay.
One of the things about being a criminal defense attorney is your clientele is got a life-changing event.
Yeah.
And when you said it earlier, the average Joe.
Right.
The average Joe was not expecting a phone call from their kid that says they got arrested.
Right.
Or they weren't expecting, this situation. First of all, I give them all my cell phone.
Okay.
Because they don't want to talk to my secretary. They want to talk to me.
Yeah.
And what it comes down to is they want answers.
And you're always available.
Always. 24/7. Any good criminal defense attorney is going to be available 24/7.
Yep.
Does that mean that you could call me and ask me when your court date is on Saturday afternoon at 5:30?
Yeah.
And things happen fast.
Yeah.
Especially when there's an arrest going on,
Mm-hmm.
or somebody needs to be arraigned, go in front of, meaning, be brought in front of the court.
Mm-hmm.
You need somebody that's going to answer your questions.
So, like you said, with regard to the bar fight, sometimes you have clients call you, their kids get into a bar fight, they get arrested, whether it's upstate, out here, anywhere else. Is there ever a situation where the person that's charged with the fight or being involved with the fight has to speak to police or detectives before speaking to their attorney?
The second you ask for an attorney, they should stop asking any sort of questions. The questions that they are allowed to ask is pedigree.
Okay.
Where do you live?
Background stuff.
Background stuff.
Age.
Nothing to do with the occurrence.
Okay.
And it's one of the, as a defendant, or meaning as the son that was in the fight,
right?
It is to open your mouth and just blurt everything out. It's almost natural. And especially if you're not, if you don't know anybody that's ever been arrested, or
right.
never been in this situation.
And you feel like you're not at fault.
Exactly.
So you're trying to prove your case to the
prove
cop.
your case.
Doesn't pay.
Exactly.
Keep your mouth shut. Call your attorney. Let it be sorted out in court.
Crazy story happened to me the other day is you had a housewife driving down the road, and she gets pulled over. She keeps her medications, which are prescribed,
okay,
outside of the prescription bottle.
Like another a container or something?
Container.
No markings on it?
Nothing.
Okay.
She gets pulled over. The container's in sight. You can see what's going on. And next thing you know is she's got a misdemeanor criminal possession charge.
Even though she has the prescription?
She says, I have scripts.
Yeah.
I have scripts. You know what? So now I have a housewife who got a speeding ticket.
Yeah.
And now has got a drug charge because she keeps her pills outside.
Right.
Listen, doesn't mean that she's not getting off.
Right. Still, she got to pay you.
She's got to pay me,
right.
which is not cheap.
Right.
Listen, I'm fair.
Yeah.
And I'm actually, the grand scheme of things, I'm very fair.
Right.
But this was just going to the grocery store and speeding. And next thing you know, you get pulled over with these pills.
Right.
And I have to be able to prove that these are hers.
Yep.
I have to prove that this is the prescription. I have to prove that she's written that prescription.
Right.
And that she's not misusing these in the wrong way.
Right.
And you know what? On a first-time offense, you're able to get that across.
Right.
But it would blow your mind to realize how many times people are arrested more than once on charges.
For the same thing.
Yeah,
that's avoidable.
crazy.
That's just avoidable.
I call it the snowball effect.
Right.
A person that has never had contact with the criminal justice system, once they have it that first time, it's like the gods look down and it snowballs into
they can't
craziness.
get away from it.
Next thing you know is they get a driving ticket,
right.
and they get trespassing ticket.
Right.
It's somebody that's never had any contact. It's just boom, 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 one thing after
another. And it gets
another.
worse and worse.
Yeah. And the key is to stop that snowball.
Right,
That's what I do.
Nip it in the bud.
Exactly.
Eliminate it and be smarter the next time.
Exactly.
So what other interesting stories do you have for the audience?
Listen,
stuff you've come across.
The amount of stories I could tell you are through the roof.
Right.
I mean, I've had stories where you have I deal with a lot of sexual assaults on campuses too.
Okay.
Which is a whole different vibe, because not only are you dealing with a criminal aspect, you're trying to make it non-criminal where it just stays on a campus.
Right.
And when I'm talking about a sexual assault, I'm not talking about like a rape
Right.
or which I handle as well, those
Right.
types of cases.
Let's expound upon that. God forbid, child gets charged with a sexual offense of some sort, sexual charge. What?
Especially if it's a college student, what it comes down to is I'll get phone calls from a parent. Listen, my son went to the bar, had a drink with this girl. They went home, they messed around. She woke up, they left, they never spoke again. And 2 days later, they're being charged. I hate to call it charged, but they're being accused of
Right.
sexual assault on campus. Sometimes, and most of the times, that does not raise to the level of a criminal defense,
Okay.
a criminal charge, but it'll be a Title IX charge.
What's a Title IX?
Basically, what Title IX means is that there was a sexual assault on campus,
Okay.
which means that the campus is going to have a hearing on campus
Okay.
that basically decides whether you're staying in school or not.
Oh.
And it could, I mean, that's the worst case scenario.
Okay.
They could also say that there's other punishments, but when you're in that type of situation, you
Right.
don't not want to have an attorney there.
You could have an
need
attorney
to-
present for that hearing?
You could have them. They're called an advisor. And
Okay.
basically what it comes down to is you need to make sure that somebody's there for your student or son or daughter
Right.
to advise them properly, because all it takes is getting up there, saying the wrong thing, making an admission,
Right.
and next thing you know is you're out $180,000 because
Expulsion.
of your tuition. Not
Right.
only that is, you know what? It's not all about the money. It's not
Right.
about the $180,000. You get that little mark on your transcript, and when you look to go someplace else a year down the line after you're licking your wounds,
Right.
it's going to be there. It doesn't go away.
Wow. So it's permanent.
Well, it's 7 years. Most schools will put it on there
Right.
for. It all depends on the finding. But the truth is you want to be able to say, I have a defense to this.
Of course.
And a lot of times parents are embarrassed, or kids are embarrassed to tell their parents.
Right.
It's huge.
Right.
And everyone thinks criminal defense attorney, in the courtroom. No, there's other ends to this.
Right.
I have a student that was in a fight at a high school.
Okay. Administrative hearings.
There's administrative hearings.
Right.
Like there are they should be represented even at an administrative hearing.
Right.
Because not only that is there's also potential civil lawsuits down the end.
Yeah.
I don't take care of that, but you need to make sure that something that an assault on campus or
Right.
an assault in a high school, you got to make sure that they're represented so they know what to say
Yep.
and what not to
And
say.
that's evidence that could then be used
Exactly.
in a civil case.
You know what?
Sworn
Exactly.
testimony,
That's exactly
records,
it.
documentation.
Yep.
So make sure you're protected.
Exactly. So people that are sitting there and say, "Oh, my son just got in a fight," or some girl's making some accusation that something went on after the bar one night.
Right.
No, don't take that lightly.
Right.
It is something that could affect you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And
Scarlet letter. Potentially.
exactly. And when it comes down to as a criminal defense attorney, I deal with that. I deal with Title IX. I deal with assault charges. I deal with the criminal ends of it.
Yep.
Not only that is you want to be able to have somebody that could sit there and look
Yep.
at your son and daughter and say, "This is what's going on."
Yep.
You got to dummy things down.
Of course.
What it comes down to is what I've been trained to do is, my clients aren't going to understand it unless you are able to sit there and say, "This is this is what's going on. This is your next step." It's a huge, there's a fear factor.
Right. Of
You
course.
get arrested or you have some sort of complaint against you. Somebody needs to sit you down, explain to you, this could, this is a blip in the road. Oh no, this is a major situation.
Right.
Or, you know what? This is how we're going to handle this. If you don't have that, you are just, first of all, you're going to be filled with anxiety. You're not
Yeah.
going to sleep.
It's the
And you're
unknown.
also, you need somebody on your side to explain to
guide
you
you.
what to do.
And who's been there, who's seen it, and this is all you do.
Exactly.
And how many years have you been doing this?
18 years at this point.
Wow, 18
Yeah,
years.
A long time. And I've been
It's
doing
2 decades.
Yeah, I've been doing criminal defense since the day I got admitted to the bar.
And so 2 decades.
Yes,
So
exactly.
there's nobody better to help you here than Greg.
Thanks.
So switching topics a little bit, we went over it off the record a little bit, off the camera rather, the social host law.
Yeah, this is like a new thing because I graduated high school in the 90s.
Yeah.
And when it
It was
comes
early
down to it,
2000s.
it was different. You had a couple beers, your friends were over, there's
Yeah.
a keg in the background, your parents are inside
Yeah.
smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
And that's the way it was.
Right, never
First of
went
all,
home.
nobody's parents are smoking cigarettes anymore.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that, they're going to arrest you.
Parents are
You
gonna
have
get
kids
arrested.
that are under 21 years old, you're going to get a ticket.
Wow.
You're going to get arrested. I have parents that say, well, what do I do? It happens. I didn't know about it.
Right.
Well, all right. Let's pretend that your head is in the ground
Right.
and that you didn't know about
Heads
it.
in the sand.
But when that cop comes up that driveway,
Right.
you go hide in that closet.
Yeah, you don't talk to the cop.
No. Let your son take the heat on this. Let your
Right.
daughter take the heat on this. Let them get a ticket if they need to get it.
Right.
You get it, it becomes a major problem.
Wow.
And nobody likes to see their name in the newspaper.
Yeah, next day, cover of Newsday, parents get arrested for hosting a party.
Yeah.
Somewhere on Long Island or the city.
exactly. I mean, the key is not to do it.
Yeah, of course.
But when it happens, you got to be real about it,
Right.
about how to handle
So
it.
that's a major offense.
Well, what it comes down to is the bigger problem is being in the newspaper.
Right.
Am I going to be able to get you out of a social host law? Yeah, we're going to
Yeah.
work something out. We're going to figure it out.
Okay.
But the truth is, once it's out there, every parent in the neighborhood, you're going to be on the school board's
You're going to be
do
that
not
couple.
host list.
Right. You're going to be on that couple.
Exactly.
That
So, obviously the recommendation is don't do it. When it does happen, you better not be home.
Right.
Because if they talk to you, there's going to be an issue.
Right.
That's literally what happens.
Okay.
It goes back to, I know I talked a lot about students, that end of things. Young people tend to get in a lot more trouble than older people.
Right.
One of the things that New York State has done is made it so, if you're, we call it YO status. If you're arrested,
Okay.
even on a major charge, New York State has given, you are still looking, they could send you to
Juvie?
We call it the farm.
Okay.
Old school used to call it juvie,
Right.
you know, like, but the farm's really just juvie.
Right.
And it's not a place that any kid wants to go to.
Of course.
But, you know, when we're fighting these things, at the end, it's nice for the parent to know, hey, if your son does the right thing or your daughter does the right thing,
Right.
we could finish this and there'll be no record.
Clean record.
Clean record.
Right.
You know, it is one of the, very rarely do I talk about the good things that New York State has done.
Of course.
New York State has done this right, where they've given, you know, I hate to call it a get out of jail free card,
Right.
but it isn't, because I've seen judges, they punish these kids
For making stupid decisions. Right.
But they don't want to ruin the rest of their lives.
Okay.
And you know what? Some kids need some tough love.
Yep.
And I've seen judges. Suffolk County's got a very, very good judge.
Right.
that is very, very strict.
Okay.
But if you want to go to college, he'll look at you and say, if you cut the shenanigans,
Yep.
I will put you into a trade program. I will get you into
That's great.
college. I will get you what you need to do.
So it's like a hand up.
But don't cross him,
Right.
because you cross him, you're going to that farm.
Yeah.
And he's not,
No
he doesn't
second
mess
chances.
around. No second chances.
All right. That's fair, though.
Yeah.
Kid screws up. The
Exactly.
judge really willing to help him.
And any kid it could happen to any kid.
Of course.
You know, all it takes is one stupid move.
We've
We're
all been
all
young and stupid. Yeah.
Exactly.
You know?
It is one of those things that, you know, as a parent, you sit there and you say, I don't want my kids to get in trouble.
Right.
No, you absolutely don't. But when they do, you got to know what to do.
Yeah. Cover them, protect you, protect your family.
Exactly. You know, it's exactly the truth.
So we're winding down the episode now. So, Greg, tell the audience how they get in touch with you. You handle all types of criminal
Yes.
defense work, right? So
Absolutely.
give the audience a little bit information. So if they need you, you're here for them.
You can contact me at greg@kalmarlaw.com. My cell phone number, which I believe that every criminal attorney should be giving out their cell number, because you know what, at 2:00, if you call my office, nobody's answering.
Of course.
So my cell phone number is 516-446-0163. My office number is 631-261-6666. People laugh that it's 6666.
Right.
The reason I do that is because when you're in custody, you need a number that people are going to remember.
Yeah, you're going to remember, of course.
Exactly. And who's not going to remember 4
And how do you spell your last name?
Kalmar.
And you're located in Melville?
I'm in Melville, 395 North Service Road. I go pretty much, I'm upstate to out
Montauk,
east.
right.
I am all over the place. And what I like to tell my clients is I handle your cases.
Yeah.
Do I have associates? Yes, I do. When I'm going to court for you or your son or your daughter, I'm the one that's handling that case.
They're getting you.
Exactly.
They're calling you. They're getting you to handle the case.
Exactly.
To represent you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us on the 4th episode of the Sorce Law Podcast. Thank you again to my guest, Gregory Kalmar, excellent criminal defense attorney located right here in Melville, Long Island. I hope you took away some stuff from today's episode. Remember, always call your attorney. God forbid you're ever arrested. Don't make any admissions to the police if you're ever arrested. And remember, protect your assets, protect yourself.